Now that Bracky's game jam is finally over, it's time to sit down, take a break, and just relax. Okay, let's make a new game. I jumped into Unity and I made a square. And I also made a circle. And then I made the square shoot the circle. And then I wrote a script that allows the player to move around, and it was not working. So I fixed it, and now the player can move without going off screen and also shoot at the same time. The game is already looking like an incredible masterpiece, but the graphics are still total shit. I mean, are still pretty bad. So the first thing I did to fix this was creating a space background using some sprites and some particle systems that I had already made for another one of my games. Oh, fun fact, even though it looks like the player is moving from left to right, in reality it is standing completely still while the background is actually the one moving in an infinite loop, giving the illusion of the player's movement. This might seem weird, but it's actually a very common trick that's used in various mobile games such as Flappy Bird or Doodle Jump that allows the game to run perfectly fine without having to make the camera always follow the player. Then I jumped into Photoshop and I drew a rocket, and it looked ugly. But I drew it again, and now it looks kind of decent. I then replaced our beloved square with the rocket, and our game is now starting to look like an actual 2D space shooter. But before we move on, there are a couple of issues we have to deal with. The first thing is that you should subscribe to the channel, because if you subscribe right now, I will personally send you a cookie. Do you want this? Then subscribe, goddammit! The second problem is that the laser bullets, once they've been shot, will keep going to the right forever, which means that if we don't do something about it, we're soon going to have thousands of bullets going off screen, damaging our game's performance. To deal with this, we simply make a new shredder, which is an invisible box that stays on the right of the background to make sure that every time a bullet goes off screen, it gets destroyed. Remember this circle? Well, now it's a meteor, and if the player shoots it, it explodes. But of course, the meteors are supposed to fly towards the player, so I made a system that generates meteors off screen. This system follows difficulty levels, which means that at level 1, meteors will spawn very slowly and it will be very easy for the player to destroy them. But let's see what happens if I turn the difficulty level up to 1000! Then I made a life system for each one of the meteors. The way this works is pretty straightforward. Every time a meteor is spawned, it gets assigned a life value based on the current difficulty level. When the player's bullets hit the meteor loses some of its life, and when life gets to 0, the meteor explodes. And you can see all of this happening by simply looking at the slider that's on top of the meteor. At this point, our game was truly starting to take shape, but instead of keeping to add more stuff randomly, I decided to make a list of things that I wanted to implement. One of the core features that I wanted the game to have, perhaps even the most important one, was a score system. If you think about it, the goal of most arcade games is not to just play the game, but to always keep improving your high score. Arcade games have been doing this since like the Middle Ages or something, and we're not here to reinvent the wheel, so I started smashing my keyboard really hard, and just like that, boom, now we have a score system, a score multiplier, and a global leaderboard. The score system itself and the multiplier were fairly easy to implement. Every time the player destroys a meteor, the score goes up, and if the player destroys lots of meteors in a row, the score multiplier goes up until it reaches the maximum of 5. The global leaderboard, however, was a bit tricky to implement. Fortunately though, I found this amazing tutorial series by Coco Code, and I just followed it step by step. This leaderboard works thanks to an online service called PlayFab, which stores all the scores by every player with a unique ID and automatically ranks them based on who has the highest score. And all of this happens without asking for emails or passwords or anything like that. At the moment of recording this, I am sitting at the top of the leaderboard with a score of over 57,000 points. So yeah, good luck beating that. Then I started to make power-ups. And yeah, the title is not a clickbait, I actually made a banana power-up and it's the strongest one in the entire game, but we'll get to that later. First off, the lightning bullet power-up. It replaces your default laser with a lightning bolt that deals lots of damage and doesn't get destroyed after hitting the first meteor. I personally love this power-up because using it involves a bit of strategy. In fact, if you position yourself on the left of a row of meteors, you'll be able to hit them with the same bullet. The triple bullets power-up is also one of my favorites. When this is on, you are able to shoot 3 bullets at the same time, that go in different directions. I was inspired to make this by the spread weapon in Cuphead, which is also one of my favorite weapons in that game. The purple bullet power-up on the other hand was very frustrating to implement, but in the end it was worth the trouble. The special thing about this bullet is that it is actually a homing missile in disguise. When it gets close to a meteor, a trigger gets activated and the bullet starts heading towards it. This power-up can also be very effective if it's used strategically. Then there's the shrink power-up, which was also inspired by Cuphead, and the way this works is also pretty straightforward. It just shrinks the player down to half of its original size. This might seem like a power down more than a power up, but it's actually very useful, especially in later moments of the game when there are lots of meteors coming at you and you desperately need to avoid them. Then there's the max multiplayer power up, again pretty straightforward. While it is activated you get the max multiplayer score, so you can get loads and loads of points. But now the moment we were all waiting for. Drumroll please. The banana. This might look like an innocent, harmless banana, but it's actually a nuclear bomb that destroys every meteor that's on the screen. Just check this out. Now you might be thinking, why is there a banana floating in outer space and why does it make all these meteors explode? And the answer is, I don't know. It sounded fun, so I made it. Yeah. The last power-up I added is the shield. This is very different from all the other ones we talked about until this point, but it's perhaps the most useful bonus in the entire game. To put it simply, it gives you a second life. If the player gets hit while the shield is on, the game will not be over and the player will have the possibility to keep playing more. There are even a couple of seconds of invincibility after the hit to give the player some time to breathe. And differently from all the other bonuses, you can have the shield and another power-up at the same time. Okay, now most of the features on my list are complete, which means there's only one thing left to do before uploading the game. And that thing is ads. In case you missed my last video, here's a quick recap. I spent $100 to release a completely free game. Yeah, so I'm kind of in the middle of a financial loss situation and I need money if I want to barely break even, so ads are more important now than ever before. But I didn't want them to ruin the whole gameplay experience, so there are no banner ads, there is only one skippable ad that pops up along with the game over screen, so it doesn't bother you while you are actually playing the game. Alright, it's finally time to build the game and upload it on the App Store and on the Play Store. So let's just hit this button. Huh, build failure. Well, don't worry, this should be easy to fix. Yeah, just when I thought I was done, Unity started throwing errors at me like a bastard about something called Gradle. What the hell is a Gradle? I spent the entire day googling for solutions on Stack Overflow and on the Unity forum. I tried a whole bunch of different things and I'll admit that I was starting to get desperate, but in the end, since I am an incredibly qualified professional game developer, I was able to fix this by trying out random settings until something worked. For some reason. I have no idea why it worked in the end, and I don't even care, honestly. Long story short, now the game is out on the App Store and on the Play Store. It's called Mad Rocket, it's totally free, I think it's a fun game and I think you should definitely check it out. By playing it, you will not only have a good time, but you will also be directly supporting this channel just like you would by subscribing, which is also something you should do. Links for download are in the first comment and in the description. Go ahead and download Mad Rocket right now. I will be waiting here staring at you until you do it. Yeah, I'm just gonna stay here. Yeah. Did you do it? Did you do it yet? Go ahead. Go ahead, come on. I have all day long.